Alright, so this video we are going to cover the very last part of chapter 2 already. We are going to talk about the graph of the inverse function. Okay, and then generally there's only one simple concept that you need to learn about the graph of the inverse function, which is when you want to draw the f inverse f, right? You will realize that they are actually reflecting each other at the line x equals to y, or maybe y equals to x. Okay, so this is a concept that you need to have. All right, but of course, in practical, how are you going to draw it? Of course, you still need to have some idea or maybe some small hints, okay, to help you to sketch it correctly. Okay, all right, so we'll start with some example here. We'll discuss at the same time also when you want to draw the graph, I will discuss with you. I will also tell you what is the technique that you can use to sketch a graph correctly. Okay, so we'll start with example 16 here. Okay, so they give you the function 3x minus 2. So sketch in a single diagram, they want to sketch fx and also f inverse x, making clear the relationship between the two graphs. Right, so for this part, right, they actually give you a linear function. And for this linear function, without finding out the f inverse x, they want you to sketch a graph. Of course, if you want to find out the f inverse x, also can. All right, but here I will just follow what they want. So we will not find out the inverse function. I will surely draw the graph for both. Okay, so first I will need to draw the original function first. So for original function, to draw the graph here, y equals to 3x minus 2. This is a linear graph. I need 2 points to sketch it. So I will let y equals to 0. Then you will get the value of x, which is 2 over 3. And then you can let x equals to 0. And then the value of y that you get is negative 2. Okay, all right, so for these 2 points, by having these 2 points here, you can try to sketch a graph for your inverse for both of the function. All right, so there's one hint that you need to know. When you want to sketch any graph that involves function and also inverse function one, you have to make sure that the ratio that you are using is the same for both x and y axis. So that means if let's say x, you are using 1 unit for 1 cm, y axis also please use it 1 cm 1 unit. If your scale or maybe the ratio of scale is different from these two axes, later when you draw the graph, it will look very weird. All right, so you have to really remember this. Okay, right, so for my original graph, I'm having 2 over 3, 0. So 2 over 3, 0, I assume it is somewhere here. Okay, so this is 2 over 3. And then negative, this one is 0 and negative 2. So 0 and negative 2. Negative 2, I assume that it is here. This is negative 2. So if I try to sketch a graph, my graph will look something like this. Okay, so you just use a ruler and try to connect these 2 points together. Okay, so it should be a linear equation, linear function. So this is fx. Okay, and then if I want to sketch the graph, which is f inverse. Okay, generally what do I have here? So this one is actually 2 over 3 and 0. This one is 0 and negative 2, right? So without finding out the inverse function, I can also sketch the inverse function. So how can I sketch? It's actually like this. When I want to sketch the inverse function, this is the original point that I have. This is the original point that I have. What I need to do is that I swap it. So that means now the y become x and the x become y. So this particular point, it will become 0 and 2 over 3. So where is 0 for x, then 2 over 3 for y? It will be somewhere here. Okay, the same thing happens for the next point here. Your x become negative 2 and the y becomes 0. So x become negative 2 and y becomes 0. It will be somewhere here. So you can try to connect these 2 points. And you join them. So this is the line for f inverse x. Okay, so you can see that without finding out the f inverse function, I can also get the graph correctly by just using the 2 points I have. So you swap the x and y coordinate when you want to draw the inverse function. So this is a small technique that you can use in the exam. Okay, so another thing is usually in the exam, after you draw the F and F inverse, right, you also have to try to plot this point. What is, plot this line. So what is this line actually? Okay, so this line you should label them as y equals to x. Which means this is actually a mirror for your F and F inverse. So if you folded it, fold the both graph on the y equals to x, you'll see that you reflect each other at this line. Alright, so you in exam you have to draw it to show them that your graph is actually symmetry on the line y equals to x. Okay, and then another important information that you might need to know, you will see that the intersection of x, the intersection of fx and f inverse will be always at the same with the y equals to x. That means all the points are, if they want to intersect, they will intersect at the same point. Okay, so this is another small hint for you because sometimes this intersection point will be very useful for you to set your graph also. Alright, so you have to remember for these three graphs, the intersection point will be at the same point. Okay, so this is a small technique or maybe the idea that you need to know how to sketch a graph correctly. And then in exam, please make sure that you label the function, inverse function, and this line y equals to x clearly. Okay, so this is one simple example how we actually draw the graph. Simple because it is not a quadratic equation. Alright, so later we will select a few questions and try to discuss about the quadratic equation and how to sketch the graph correctly. Okay, alright, so let's continue to the part number 2. Okay, so for part number 2, after the function f, they give you the function g. Okay, so first they want you to express g f x, the composite function, in terms of x, and they want you to show that the maximum value of g f x is 9. Okay, so this part generally is not hard. I will just leave it for you to complete it yourself. Okay, so you need to find out g f x first. Okay, so of course you have a series of steps here. And then your g f x will be negative 9, and then x squared plus 30x minus 16. And after that, they want you to find out the maximum value and to show that it is 9. Okay, so because we haven't learned differentiation, so for me, I will just want you to do the completing square to figure out the maximum value. So after you do the completing square correctly, you should have x minus 5 over 3 and then square plus 9. Okay, so which means that the maximum value is equals to 9. Excuse me. Okay, so this part is easy, so you go and complete yourself. Okay. So now let's continue further to the next example. Okay, so example 17. Let's have a look here. Okay, so what they give you. So now they are giving you a quadratic equation. Okay. All right, so when you look at this, it already gives you the quadratic equation in a, how to say, in a completing square form. You're having a plus 0 at the back. Okay, so this is already a completing square form, and the domain given is x greater equals to 9. Okay, so first part, they to find the inverse function of f. So how to find it out? When they ask you to find the inverse function of f, you no need to go and check whether is it 1-to-1 anymore. It is already a 1-to-1 function. No need to purposely go and check. Okay, all right. So now, again, I'll let y equals to x minus 9 squared for part number 1. So I take the square root. I should include plus and minus sign. Then I'm having x equals to 9 plus minus square root y. So again, you have to select the correct inverse function yourself, right? So what is the correct inverse function here? Should you choose 9 plus or 9 minus? So I think you should look at 9 plus, right? You should choose 9 plus square root as an answer because you are having greater than 9. So you choose 9 plus square root x as your inverse function. Excuse me. All right, then now you go to part number 2. Okay, so for part number 2, they want you to sketch f and f inverse on the same plane. Okay, so how to sketch it on the same plane? Okay, so maybe I can draw the original function first. So you see that x squared, you want to change it become x minus 9 and you square it, right? So that means you are moving the graph 9 units to the right hand side. So that means if this is a 9, and they only want you to consider the part for x greater than 9, so your U shape eventually will have only half of it. Okay, so this is what you have for the fx. All right, how about to sketch the inverse function? Okay, so maybe before you sketch the inverse function, or you may need to draw the graph first. Y equals to x. So y equals to x, you need to draw it through 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, 4, 4, and so on. So if you can use any point as a reference. Okay, so you sketch a line y equals to x. Okay, so now I want to draw the inverse function. So to draw the inverse function, this point itself is 9, 0. So when I swap the coordinate, it will become 0 and 9. So 0 and 9 may be here. Okay, and then just now I already asked you to draw the graph, right? Y equals to x. So what is the purpose that I want you to draw this is because of I want you to know that your graph for inverse function, you'll pass through this point also. So you can imagine that if, let's say you want to draw your graph, right, and it is reflected at equals to x, so your graph will look something like this. Okay, so the blue color one will be f inverse x. Okay, so again, this is how we sketch it up. So sometimes you find when you hear on it, the concept it looks very easy to sketch, but there are a lot of details that you should consider when you want to sketch a graph. All right, so this is what you have for part 2. Okay, then now we continue to part number 3. They want you to state the domain and also the range for f inverse. Okay, so the domain of f inverse will be equals to the range of f. So if you look at the graph, what is your range of f? The smallest value here is 0. Your graph will keep on going up for the original function, right? Therefore, the domain of f inverse will be y. Domain. So domain should be f x. So x greater equals to 0. And then after that, when you want to get the range of the inverse function, so to get the range of the inverse function, it should be the same as the domain of the function. So what's the domain of the function here? So it is given in the question already, which is x greater equals to 9. Therefore, when you write out, it should be y. Sorry, this one should be range of inverse function. So it should be y. So y greater equals to 9. Okay, so when you want to find the inverse, the domain and range, right, for the inverse function, right, usually you just refer back to the domain and range for the original function. Okay, so this is one particular question about the inverse function about quadratic expression and also how to sketch a graph correctly. Okay, then we have another example here. Example 18. Okay, so for example 18 again, they give you option G and they are very kind. They already give it to you in how to say, in a completing square form. Okay, so first they ask you why G has no inverse. So I told you already, right? It is a very standard answer. So you can tell them that it is not a one-to-one function. All right, and then after that, part B, if the domain of G, they change it become x greater equals to -1. So they ask you to find a G inverse. That means when the domain is like this, it is already a one-to-one function. So you can find a G inverse. And they want you to sketch the graph of G and G inverse. And after that, they want to state the domain and range of G inverse. Okay, all right. So for this part, I will mainly leave it for you. Okay, so to get the G inverse, you are having a series of steps here. Your final answer for G inverse should be -1 plus square root x plus 2. Okay, and then for the graph part, maybe you can try to pause the video a while, try to complete the graph first before you check answer here. Okay, so for the graph, I'm having -1 and -2. Okay, so my first is -1 and -2. And then it will go through the -1 here, like this. So maybe for this this graph, you can try to find the y-intercept first. Y-intercept here to help you better in sketching your graph later. Okay, and then so this is my gx. After that, what is the fx? Okay, so this is my line y equals to x, and I know that my inverse function will pass through this point. Just now you got -1 and -2, it will become -2 and -1. So -2 and -1 is here. Okay, and then you will pass through -1 and 0. And then you will pass through this intersection point. So if you imagine your graph, it should look something like this. So this is G inverse X. All right, so I hope that you have the idea how to get this. And then after that, to get the domain of G inverse, it will be equals to the range. All right, so you can write out the result. So the range of G is X greater equals to -2. That is the range. And then the range of G inverse is the domain of G. So the domain will be y greater equal -1. Alright, so please make sure that you go and have a try of this example, especially the graph part. Okay, I think the graph part, maybe quite a number of you need some time to figure out how to draw it correctly. Okay? Alright, so again, this is just part of the example that we have only now. We are having a lot of questions related to this inverse function with the quadratic expression plus the graph. So after this video, hopefully you go and try out all the tutorial questions at the back. Okay, to make sure that you really understand all the concept clearly. All right, so we'll end here for this video. Next video, we will start with our chapter